Hey y'all, guess who's back? Back again. Deadra's back. Tell a friend, guess who's back? Guess who's back? I miss y'all so much. Of course, I've been gone for 30 days on the Facebook jail hiatus. I did my little bid. So I'm back with some new, fresh content. So y'all make sure that y'all are liking and following the page so y'all don't miss anything. Tonight, we're going to have a really, really good show. I have Montoya, aka Black Socrates from the Mental Dialogue. He's joining me tonight. Let me bring him up on the screen. Hold on. I ain't did this in a minute. I gotta slow down. There you go, Montoya.
Hey, what's
Okay.
up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much
Glad to
for
be with
joining
you.
me. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you so much for coming on such a late notice. But this topic, I knew that it was along the same vein of mental dialogue. So I thought it would be something that you appreciate
Oh yeah.
giving your 3 cents.
Oh yeah.
So since we've mentioned the mental dialogue and you're here, explain to people who you are and what it is that you do and how the mental dialogue works.
Okay, absolutely. Again, my name is Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates. I am the curator of the Mental Dialogue Community Club, where our mission is to basically create a virtual nationwide neighborhood where African Americans learn to trade goods, services, and ideas. And so that's what we do very well. And in order to do that, we have live events and we have a radio show as well called Mental Dialogue every Saturday morning live, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Deja is one of my queens of intellect, so she comes on as a guest co-host. So I'm super excited to be on your show tonight because again, sometimes I've called you at last minute, so it was a no-brainer when you called me. If I'm available, I'm here for you, Queen. But thank you, for letting me highlight and what we, like you said, what we do. I say we are the best of the world at having hard conversations on race, sex, and culture. So tonight's topic is absolutely right up my vein, and I'm glad to be here with you, Queen.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into it. So tonight's topic is: does who you sleep with determine whether or not you are a racist or pro-black? If you are a white person and you sleep black, does that necessarily mean that you're not a racist? And also, if you are a black person and you sleep white, can you actually be pro-black? And that's what I want to touch on first.
Okay.
I want to touch on that one first because what made me bring up this conversation is I was seeing some interactions on Facebook where it was someone who is a self-proclaimed pro-black activist, and this particular person never would bring their wife or mate around to the different events. And some of the people found out that this person actually has a white spouse.
Okay.
But this particular person has contributed so much to the community. They have done everything that you can even think of when you're thinking about somebody who is Black power that actually put their life and safety, money, everything on the line in order to support his respectable community. But a lot of people were like, how can this person even claim to be one of us and sleep white? So do you think it's possible for someone to be pro-black and sleep white also?
I think you just described somebody who absolutely did it. I mean, actions speak louder than words. And so I can even, as I hear that story, it even makes sense why never bringing the spouse around, because he understood, in a sense, how that would be received inside of the community. But clearly, even going through the effort of, in a sense, hiding, maybe protecting, or just or even his own, even I don't know if you would call it embarrassment or whatever, because clearly if it was his spouse, this is who he loved, or whatever, if you will. But at the end of the day, that was his personal dynamic. His reality is how he lived his life out in reference to, I mean, according to you, as far as even putting a life on the line, I guess, or whatever, obviously that can vary over the years. But if this person went that far, that's your actions. And then I'll say for the Mental Dialogue Community Club, basically, we make it very clear that we are, like, our vision is to raise awareness and create recreate excellence in the Black conscience. So that's our vision or whatever. But that vision comes from in a sense, consider myself pro-black, if you will. So it comes from wanting to see our people elevate. But at the end of the day, I've always felt anybody could be pro-black. So, and when I say anybody, I'm talking about anybody of any race. Like I've always felt that way. So
That's interesting.
so I've never taken the stance with some of our members who are married outside the race. That's not going to be an issue inside of the Mental Dialogue Community Club, because that person's actions, and sometimes their spouse, even of another race, we don't have but a couple, but either way, that's welcome. Because at the end of the day, because I've always felt, I learned that others could be pro-black. When I first got in my pro-black stage, I was kind of the mindset that, oh, that's not something you could do. But as I've transitioned, and I'll tell you more of my personal story, because I've ran the full gamut on where I see this at now, being somebody growing up in a little small town in the South. But we'll get into that a little deeper. But yeah, I think actions speak louder than the word. And the last thing I'll say about it, because anybody that's listening right now, he thinks it's okay because he lets it be a part of his club. I know that's the assumption maybe for somebody listening right now. But I'll say this, even for those who in a sense claim it and really are pro-black and would not, which I have no problem with, it's obviously your choice. But there are some that claim it, and when it come down to the action, whether that be dangerous action or financial action, I ain't never had that issue with the people that they would claim to be not pro-black because they have a white spouse. I've never had that issue with them, but some of those people that's the biggest and the loudest and will make the most noise about it have proven not to be about that action, because I'm completely dedicated to the elevation of our people.
Yeah, I think for me, I was a little conflicted with it because I looked at this person performing the duties. They're doing their due diligence, everything that we think that someone who is self-proclaimed pro-black is supposed to be doing. And I see this person doing that. However, I had mixed emotions because I'm like, how can you truly like express certain things when one of your loved ones is one of them and part of the system that we're fighting against? And I know that we have this thing where we have some people that we consider to be an ally, but that don't mean you go and sleep with them. It's like they could be an ally, but you don't get all the way intertwined like that, because then it becomes a thing where, and I wanted to get to this point too, it becomes a thing where now these people are reproducing. So now you're reproducing, and that's a whole nother layer. And then you have these kids, they coming up, these mixed kids and everything. And then you have to bring the question, like, can you really be a mixed person and be pro-black? When the thing is, we have seen it. Like, we have people that, like, some of our most revolutionary leaders are mixed and they are pro-black. But it's like, it seems like it's so difficult and it takes a lot. Do you think maybe it takes a lot more strength for somebody to be in an interrelationship and be pro-black than others who's not? Because you got to think about it. You're actually loving this person. Like, if you're pro-black and one of your parents is white, you know how what you got to deal with to like stand up and be like, I'm going to fight for this particular cause, and here it is, my mother or my father is a white person, or here it is, my spouse is a white person, and I got to fight for this cause because of who I am. I feel like maybe it takes a lot more strength to do that than the other way around. Honestly, now since I talk it out and think about it.
Well, what happens is that's going to be, as anything in life, that's going to be circumstantial based on where they live at, if you will, right? So if they live in an area where, like, for example, I'll just say, for example, like, and I'm going to generalize a little bit. So, like, for example, might not be as hard in Toronto, Canada, where there's intermixing has been popular for a lot of years.
It's always been diverse.
Right. So in that area, maybe it's not as tough to do that, right? But grow up in my little 3-stoplight town that's 23% black, where I'm from, or whatever. And yeah, you have a white parent or you're mixed or whatever. Yeah, because just like whoever the guy you were just talking about when you first asked me about. So whatever, his actions clearly showed himself to be what they were. So yeah, it was difficult, because it's difficult in the sense that he couldn't just parade his beautiful black wife around because he didn't have one. So he couldn't represent his family. Eventually, once it was discovered, everybody's going, oh, no wonder he never showed his wife, right? So yes, he's literally about that life, but having to be
So he's
about that
basically
life
living kind of like a double life, so to speak.
and protect. Yeah, I mean, clearly, this is his spouse, so that's a whole other step. Not his girlfriend, but his actual spouse. So
Yeah.
yeah, so for him, imagine how difficult it is. And so a lot of times we will say, I'm talking about just in general, for those who say that you cannot be pro-black and do that, then some people will say, well, that difficulty is alone is why you shouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that thought process, but as far as you say, as you talk it out, imagine how
Then it's
hard it is
yeah.
to
How
actually do it,
if
and
you
how
look at objective.
pro-black
Mm-hmm.
must you be to want to deal with that, because it's easier to do this. It's easier to intermix and not be pro-black.
Yeah.
Pro-black, not be pop. Let's go pop, like pro-black in a black power way.
Right.
Right. So if you ain't, moving like that, then you can go, move to
It's
Seattle.
easier.
Right. That's no
Yeah.
problem.
You can
What?
camouflage yourself.
Right. Well, you're not worrying about it because you're not concerned with
Mm-hmm.
that fight, if you will. So, obviously for people that are against it, they're not going to like us as we are logically walking through the conclusion, because you just said it. Is it
Mm-hmm.
harder? You damn right it's harder based on where you live. But again, if you're in Toronto, not a problem. If
Exactly.
you're in California, not as big of a problem. In South Carolina,
Exactly.
yeah. In Texas, yeah. That's going to be hard.
Yeah. In Texas might be a little bit easier too. But you know what I was thinking about too is this. Certain people they evolve into a certain level of consciousness. So it could have been a case where a lot of people sometimes, not even thinking anything about it. It just depends on who in the proximity of them where they live. Like what you were saying, in different areas that's more diverse, where, interracial relationships is nothing that nobody even bats an eye at, because it's just the norm. It's just how people just, were mixed all in together. So I think too that a lot of times it's kind of like a kid that grow up and having to find an adopted parent. Like, even though they love the parent that's raising them, but it's like, I still want to know where I come from. So you in a relationship, like this person may have been in a relationship already before they gained a certain level of consciousness.
Right.
And then they got to that point where they like, oh no, I want to, live out my life and my existence like this. And they just so happens to be with a white person at the time of them evolving, and now it's like they're quote unquote pro-black, and
That
their
could be a
spouse is
process.
supporting them in it. So
Right.
it can happen like that too.
Yeah.
And usually, with actually being pro-black, that does come from because we've been brainwashed to believe, we've just been messed up for so many years to where, like, even to be pro-black and move in a certain type of way, a lot of us had to evolve to that anyway. So it's like you gotta keep in mind of where this person started at. Now, if it's somebody that was talking about they pro-black and they had already reached them certain levels, and now, now you talking about you done got to this level,
right,
you done
right,
reached
right.
God body level, but now intermixing like that.
Right.
I might side eye you a little bit, like what you're doing. You're looking like an agent right now. Now I would you better have been with that person for some years for me to be like, okay, I ain't gonna pass judgment too hard on you.
Right. Well, here's the reality, whether we like it or not. We shouldn't be passing any judgment. I know that sounds crazy, but here's the reality. The reality is, man, humans do what humans do. Let's break this down. So, and I know you're familiar with this, and you probably have heard me say it on the show. At the end of the day, race is a social construct. It's such a social construct. Let's just think about this. And again, I'm just gonna keep it a buck because I always do, right? So I'm gonna tell you, after I tell you this part, I'm gonna go back through my own story. I literally have been through the full process. Like, at the end of the day, I only want a sister. I know that at this point in my life. That's not been my entire life. I'm gonna walk you through that in a minute. Let's just talk about humans being humans and the fact that race is a social construct. Humans are humans to the extent that in this country in particular, where obviously it's built on race, so we're going to see these issues way more in the U.S. than either other places around the world. That even when it was illegal to date black people, it's some crazy ass white people that did it.
Yeah, they still did it. Yeah,
you have to like risk their entire life to be married interracial. Now, this is, because I'm not against it, somebody else listening is probably thinking, oh, he's for it or whatever. I'm talking about what humans really do. So
Yeah.
humans, to the extent that even when it was illegal, even when you're going to be disowned by your mama and your daddy,
Written out the wheel.
people still will get together because this is what humans do. And so, unfortunately, our experience as African Americans under this social construct is one in which, by nature, by our real lived experience, we actually overemphasize race more than we realize that we should. And it's
Yeah.
due to the history. So I'm not saying it as though we shouldn't do it. I'm not saying it as it don't make sense that we do it. However, reality is, and this is what the kids will always do, regardless of what's going on in the country, regardless as racist as America has been, the young generation was always going to buck what the country said we're
Yeah.
supposed to do. And it's still continuing to happen. So no matter what judgments you or I want to make on somebody, because at the end of the day, like how we even look or sound, trying to control who somebody loves, like if you really think about it on a human level, but but in the event of even trying to do it, humans gonna show you, the kids are gonna do something different anyway. And the reason the kids are gonna do something different is because we all at least understand this once we get older. This racism shit is taught.
Right.
So the reason the kids do something different is because in the sense, to a degree, if they haven't been skewed too much to a degree, they're going to do different than what we might tell them or say what we want for them. And then let's jump real quick. Let's jump to the other side of it. How we know there are people who've dated interracially and still and a partner was still racist.
Still racist. And that's what I wanted to get to, because like in the comment, Yamo, he said, this Yamo, he said, I missed the beginning. How do you find pro-black? So when I think about pro-black, and maybe I look at it in kind of like a kind of a militant lens, so to speak. I would say that, to where it's like, okay, you could do all of these things, but it depends on essentially what you're saying. I don't like this white on my lip. What you're saying, this the thing we're going live. You might miss the one thing you cute and get other. Okay. It's like what is being pro-black is to you, because like for me, it goes all the way to legacy for me, so it's not so much as what we're doing presently actively in the community or whatever the case may be. It's also your legacy, like, and intermixing and having these biracial children and all this old type of stuff. And then you got to think about like your wealth, like, when you're building and making money and things like that. Like legacy is very important to me. So I understand the human desires, and sometimes people can look past race and looking, and it's not one of those things of we all should love each other, anything like that. I feel like, in a sense, you can't fully be pro-black all the way to me, because like what about your actual legacy though? Because that's what I look at. Like your legacy, what about your actual legacy though? Because at the end of the day, your wealth and everything is going over there to that side. And it doesn't mean that you gotta hate them, dislike them, or not even be attracted to them. But at the end of the day, I feel like you shouldn't marry them. Like if you gonna sleep with them or something like that, okay, that's what you do. But I don't feel like you should go so far as to actually marrying them.
So the best argument for not interracially married for us as African Americans is, now you're in the vein of when there is a good argument not to. The best argument is when you are, as you said, considering wealth and legacy. Okay. Now let's be very honest about what that actually is, because we have an idea of what it is that, in my opinion, is we don't have a real good concept of what that really is, in my opinion. And so let's talk about that. So and let me say one other thing. And by default, it's not necessarily that the money goes over to them, because at the end of the day, your kid is still black to a degree. And a lot of mixed kids quite often will identify as black, and your mixed kid may just go ahead and marry a black woman. And so wealth ain't went to back. Oh, like we have to kind of think from a default
Yeah,
position
so
to
you
a
going
degree.
like more of a generational type, like
Yeah, I'm
as
just
the
throwing out
generation.
that
Yeah,
we immediately kind of default to a degree to the wealth's going over them. Like, what you mean? Why ain't the wealth coming to us? I'm just saying,
right,
what if you a black
exactly,
woman? I'm just saying,
essentially.
right? But I'm just throwing out that how we default to them. But
Yeah,
again, that's being raised, that's growing up in America. Now, there's validity to that. What you're saying, though, there's a lot of validity to your argument. Here's my however. We have to be very honest about what the amount of wealth where that stuff starts mattering.
yeah. Before you get into that,
Yeah,
Montoya, can I get to one of these
yeah,
comments?
please do.
Charisma said, "Hey, Charisma, thank you for being here, boo." Charisma said, "You can be pro-black in a sense as far as wanting better and doing things to progress black people, but when you sleep with and marry other races, the pro-blackness can only go so far." She also said, most of our attractions, etc., are often propaganda propagandized and socially engineered. And that's what I was saying. Like, I understand people, being attracted, and you might, want to, mess around with them or anything like that. But it's just the whole marrying part. But you were about to go into further into that about the marrying part, like marrying them and everything
Yeah, no
too.
doubt, no doubt.
Okay.
Let me address charisma as well. Like, I mean, to a degree, um, let's keep it to a degree. The kids are going to be damn near black regardless in a lot of cases. Not all the cases, obviously,
Not
but
that
in most
definitely.
cases, and especially when we think about the history of this country, when they was figuring out who they're going to identify as black and who they're going to identify as white. Like, if you want to go all the way back, Thomas Jefferson, who is notorious for a lot of the BS narratives that we have about race, his cognitive dissonances went as far as his black mistresses. He was one of the people that signed
The
to
one drop rule.
well, no, it wasn't. The one drop rule doesn't apply. Like, when you go find out legally when it was actually used, it wasn't used until the 1900s, believe it or not.
But he used it because he was trying to make his kids a slave.
Well, he didn't use that rule. There was a. Let me just be what he did. There was
Okay.
a chance to whether they were going to actually recognize the mixed children as enslaved or not, and he did vote to allow them to still be enslaved. Like
And they
that.
were his children, his
Yeah, they was
offspring.
right. So I'm just I'm just pointing it out to say, there's no propaganda in that. Humans do what they do. I mean, to a degree. But anyway, back to the wealthy part. So due to what's happened to us historically, we know there's a lot of generational wealth missing from our community collectively, right? So due to that, you absolutely are correct in the sense of, if you are legacy minded, this is what legacy minded must include, because a lot of times we're not thinking this out. Legacy minded, that means you got life insurance and you have an estate planning. Like, that's a part of who you are prior to marrying someone, or maybe you got married young and now you're thinking about it. Like, I'm saying is that is a very important aspect. If those things are because if you say legacy is important to you, but you don't have both of those in order, you bullshitting, and I don't think you're pro-black. I'm gonna call it out like that, because when at the end of the day, you can raise up good citizens, you can raise your children to be proud of themselves, and in a sense, they will go forward. I'm sorry. They will go
Yeah, because
forward.
I want to ask you a question about what you just said,
Yeah.
because we're
Yeah.
going to go back to the no judgment. Because initially you said, like, okay, we're not going to judge because of who they sleeping with, but we are going to say they're not pro-black because they don't have all this financial stuff set up.
You're right.
But
So
so they could, so you
so here it is. This is what I'm saying. If you compare this
okay.
judgment of that you're not pro-black because you have this white woman or you have this white man. I'm talking about comparing. I'm
Okay,
just
so
trying to
you're
I'm
just
walking
saying in
through.
addition,
Yeah, I'm talking about
I feel like okay.
let's walk through what we're talking about today. The stigma of you're not pro-black if you have a white woman or white man. Like we're saying that's possibly that you're not pro-black. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm challenging, as black as you might be, and as beautiful as your bride or husband may be, that you know what I mean. Because again, that's what the color of my lover's hair is gonna be black. I know this. I love black women, so that's
Mm-hmm.
a non-issue for me personally. However, when we start using the word legacy, which we should be talking about and we should be using it, it literally humans historically, while legacy has even mattered in marriage, it was the idea that you are required to leave something.
Right.
Okay, so unfortunately, we don't have a lot of our community getting married, but for those who are, and if you're legacy minded, then I absolutely think that is a valid argument for why you should be, in a sense, marrying within the race because you are dedicated to. I'm talking about these are the minimums. You can do more,
Mm-hmm.
but you got your life insurance in place, and you also are considering estate planning. The reason you're considering estate planning is because you've said I want to be pro-black. It can't be that I just
And
got
that and
the
that,
wife.
and that covers your loved ones that's left behind, on top of giving them something like if to continue to build up on, so
Right?
they
It
won't
can't.
have to be worrying about your bills and stuff in the case
Yeah,
of
yeah. All
your
I'm saying is it
departure.
can't be. I got myself my black wife or my black husband, and I raised my children in this to a degree, and so yeah, they carry on your blood, but there's no legacy if you haven't given them a foot up. And
Right.
the reason I'm saying this is so if that's not your a minimum to leave something to the next generation. I'm talking about if that's not your minimum and you're the
Right.
person judging the black person with the white woman and the white husband, we need to check what we call
Yeah,
them
and we
pro-black.
need to check on both sides.
What
We
we
need
call
to
them
do some
pro-black.
exactly. You need to do some checks and balances. So that's what
So you,
because that's what I think about was what you described. That's what I think about when I think about legacy, and that's the reason why I be like, don't do that because of all the things that need to be left behind and things that need to be established in case you're no longer here. Let me get to one of these comments. Tristan, thanks for being here, Tristan. Tristan said people have to respect the act of sleeping in order for who they sleep with to help determine if they are not racist or pro-black, etc. Yeah, because you know what, it is a very fine line in it, and I'm gonna tell you the truth.
I don't understand. To explain what he's. I don't understand what he's saying.
Okay, so he said
I just want to
he
understand.
said in other words, there is a lot of maturity required for it to matter. So I'm gonna go back to his
Yeah,
question
just
so
yeah. I
we
just want
could
to
get
understand.
okay. We're gonna go back. He said people have to respect the act of sleeping in order for who they sleep with to help determine if they are not racist or pro-black, etc.
Yeah, y'all don't understand what that means. So
He
you just
said.
explain it to me. I just want you to explain it to me.
So I guess in the way what I get from what he said is it's like a difference in between like they have to respect the act of like sleeping, like okay, we sleeping around or we messing around, we're sleeping with each other, but just because we sleeping with each other, it doesn't matter if I'm sleeping with someone who's black and I'm white. It doesn't matter if just because they're black, that doesn't mean I'm not racist. And
Oh,
just because I'm sleeping with somebody who's white, that doesn't mean that I'm not pro-black. So I think that's what he's saying. Let me see. Kind of did I get that right? Or is we
I think
talking
yeah.
about
I think I understand what. I think that's what he's saying. But
he
yeah,
said, let me see here. He said you can have black people not respecting each other in their legacy. I think tell me whether or not I got that right, what you were saying, Tristan. That's what I had gathered from it. Okay, he said you got it. Okay, yeah. So basically, that's what he's saying. Like it's a difference, and I think that goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. Like you can sleep, you can if you want to sleep with these people. Okay, just don't marry them because I'm into legacy. So that's what I was saying, and it's not. And my thing is when I say just don't marry, it's not on anything other than legacy is what I think about when it comes to that, and then that's when it ties into this whole pro-black thing. And if we want to go on to the other side and talk about the white people who sleep with black people who claim that they are not racist. I would be perfectly honest with you. I've seen in most cases where you could have people who are with a white spouse and black. The white spouse, a lot of times, be supportive of whatever they're doing as far as things in the community and them being pro-black, right? But a lot of times you will have people in a relationship. A lot of times on the flip side of that, you will have sometimes where the white spouse, say if the person is not quote unquote pro-black, right? And it's just your average Joe running around, and there's not a self-proclaimed black person. I mean, pro-black person. A lot of white people be feeling like just because they sleep with black people or they married a black person, they be like, oh, this person can't be racist, or I'm not racist, and they just be as racist as all get out. But they sleep black. That don't mean that they're not racist, though. I see more black people who will turn around and be pro-black to an extent into relationships, and I see a whole lot of white people who be in interracial relationships, and they be racist.
Well, and like I said, I'm gonna be honest with you. It really speaks to the silliness of this whole topic, and it's the silliness of it. I mean, we just talked about Thomas Jefferson. I mean, we just even talk about just our history here of for the most part, hardly any of us as African Americans are all African or whatever, due to the intermixing that has always went on, even though there were laws in place, if you will. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, you had slave masters regularly sleeping with black women. So who you're sleeping with has nothing to do with whether you're racist or pro-black. Because, I mean, that's the clearest evidence you could ever have of it. Supposedly, we were less than, but you sneaking out the house and going into the quarters and making babies.
But them slave masters weren't marrying them either, though. Hold on, here go another comment. And that's the difference. Like, this is somebody's spouse, but that's true. In that case, the pro-black guy that he's married to a white woman. And that's another thing when we go back to legacy, when you want to think about the slave and the slave master thing. And a lot of white people, I'm going to tell you something about white people that I've noticed. They do everything in their power to protect their bloodline. They do, even when it came to the whole Hitler thing or whatever. This was a protecting a bloodline type of thing that was going on. It's just like, even with this whole, they'll sleep with you. I wouldn't say protect your bloodline. I say protect your legacy, because they'll nut in you and get you pregnant and have interracial kids. What I'm saying is they'll do anything to like protect, their legacy. They're not gonna turn around, like in that case, the slave and the slave master. He's not turning around and marrying the slave, though.
So I respect that. Here's the reality. Regardless of what you or I think, the country, interracial marriage is increasing majorly in this country, and in Canada. And again, this is not about how I feel about it, or this is just the reality of what's happening, or whatever. Now, at the end of the day, and I still want to highlight the legacy thing, because I want to be real clear on that. Again, I think that is the best argument in a sense for why to stay within. But yeah, I think we have to be honest. I'm talking about for all, because what I'm saying is a lot of us judge that this interracial stuff, we judge it without doing enough of a mirror check to say, oh, we're doing the things that really are pro-black. And what I'm saying is,
yeah, like, are you even with a black person and being pro-black?
But like, I'm talking about at the end of the day, if you're not gonna, if you don't reach, in my opinion, this is okay. It is my opinion. What I'm saying is, legacy, we don't really understand it. In my opinion, I'm talking about collectively and culturally. And what I mean is, it ain't even just we left an insurance policy. Like, that ain't legacy. What I'm saying is, to a degree, for the most part, if you're not focused to bring a significant amount of uplift to the next generation, in other words, being the generation that's going to sacrifice in order to do that, here's a reality, whether we like this or not. If you get together and all it is a $80,000 life insurance policy, what I'm saying is there's financial levels that the majority of Americans are in, that it don't matter who you sleeping with, because there is no real legacy to be left. There is no real
Yeah.
financial uplift amount of I guess cool that you
It's
left.
like so what you're saying is, as far as we've been behind as black people, it probably wouldn't even matter because we've been so far back. So you can't give that push that, a lot of them have been able to leave behind because
Well, what
we're
I don't know,
so
I want to
at a
no,
disadvantage.
so let me say it like this. I don't want to sound like that. What I am saying is, in order to say you're pro-black, your focus needs to be on legacy to the extent that you and your significant other, and I would want it to be a black woman in my case, or vice versa for you, a black man, because y'all both have teamed up and understand what the legacy really means. But
Yeah,
you and your husband getting together and wearing a dashiki and doing okay. I'm not saying you're broke. You can do okay.
selling incense and shea
No,
butter.
no, I'm not. No, I'm talking about doing. I'm gonna give you all the way to doing. I want people to understand that doing okay and even being middle class and leaving a okay
Something
instance.
back, some type of cushion back.
What I'm saying
Yeah.
is, I want this to be very clear that even in doing okay and leaving an okay insurance policy and maybe a house, that still ain't real. That
You
ain't
feel like
legacy.
that's not enough.
That because that's you see what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So if we say we're going to be pro-black, then because we're behind, we have to be more dedicated.
But why won't you feel like, okay, if that's the case, because you could be with a black person and do that. If that's the case, if those things are some of the things that if we don't have in line that's gonna hold us back, then marrying outside our race would be another thing to hold us back. That's another
How does it
cement
hold you
block.
back? I don't understand what you mean.
If I mean, because if we're talking about
Your kids are going
legacy
to be
and
black in most cases. So how are you holding them? I
what
don't
is
get it.
okay, so
In most
the
cases, they're
thing
going to be
is,
black.
okay, so if we're already behind the eight ball and legacy is based on your criteria for legacy, and we're already behind it. If the people don't, if two black people together, so this is how I'm hearing what you're saying. If
Okay.
two black people are together and they have not left those things, established those things, then they're not they wouldn't be considered pro-black.
So I'm not
Is
going to
that
say.
what you're
So
saying?
let me make it real clear. That I remember I said, if you here we go. Let's get it
Is
clear.
that because I'm into legacy?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
Okay,
To
okay.
clarify is I said the best argument to date within your race is when you are legacy focused.
Legacy driven. Okay,
But I don't
okay.
want
I
to.
got you.
I don't want to peruse over legacy like that. Just means let's say me and you got married, we had some babies,
And that's enough.
and maybe we left them $150,000, and we
Right.
lived our life pro-black. That ain't the type of legacy that requires that I find a black woman.
Okay, I got you. Let me
Yeah,
get
like
into
yeah,
these
yeah,
comments.
yeah.
I get what
You
you're
see what I'm
saying now.
saying?
I was just
Yeah,
trying to make sure.
yeah.
Okay, so you was just expounding on me talking about legacy.
Because again,
Well,
that's when
okay,
to me, that's when the marrying your own makes sense. But you must be truly
exactly.
legacy focused. If you're not legacy focusing, I'm telling humans gonna do what they gonna do, and you ain't
Right.
leaving nothing anyway. Cool, you got a black woman, but your kids gotta start over again. What?
Exactly.
So how
Let me
pro
get
black is that?
into some of these comments. So they talking, baby.
Yeah.
Charisma say, I think that for each individual, it is important to get to the root of why one is with another race or even their own race for that matter. We often have subconscious clutter that influences who we choose to do life with. And then that's right. And Tristan says the black girl that was posting her white boyfriend who beat her up months later over Trump being president is enough recent proof that yeah, he had a black girlfriend, but he didn't love or respect her blackness.
Can I address the
And
last one? Oh, I'm sorry.
I think he's
Yeah,
still going on this
okay,
one.
cool. Oh my
And
God.
she had a white boyfriend, yet she didn't respect herself enough to see the dude was racist. So she wasn't being pro black because she wasn't being pro herself. Your pro blackness starts within yourself because you can have cases where two blacks are together yet not doing anything for their legacy. Then he says, my motto is aim to do at least one step better than your parents, and it's technically a success. A lot of us are starting behind the eight ball, but we build confidence with each milestone. You want to speak to
I want
anything
to.
he said?
Can
They
you go
said
back to the sister first? I want to because I want to.
charisma. What she said, charisma. She
Because I
said
want to. I want to walk through some of what. Yeah, say that again.
She said, I think that for each individual, it is important to get to the root of why one is with another race or even their own race for that matter. We often
Mhm.
have subconscious clutter that influences who we choose to do life with.
All
She
right.
made a
So I
good
want to.
point.
So now I told you I was going to go through my personal journey a little bit, and this is the perfect place to do it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people will say, "Well, what made you start? What made you start mental dialogue? Or when did you, in a sense, become conscious?" And like a lot of young men, I ended up coming across Malcolm X autobiography in about the 8th grade, so maybe a little sooner than most.
Mm-hmm.
But now I would say that was quote unquote my awakening into consciousness to a degree, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
here's the full gamut on based on what she just talked about. What she just said is absolutely key. The why, getting into the why, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
and then for me, it was growing up in the South. MLK is all I knew, and then I come across come across the Malcolm X autobiography. I've read it 3 times in my life. I've read like 15 books on Malcolm. That's my hero, right? But I will
Mm-hmm.
tell you, when I first read that book, that was my first time realizing the concept of just understanding our own beauty.
Yeah,
Because
being for self.
yeah, I'm saying, and I say beauty on purpose because here's
Mm-hmm.
my growing up in the South, which is very typical in like I said, a town that's about 20% black. So as a young kid, subconsciously, for the most part, in a majority white town, when you're a kid, before your mates are exposed to a lot of racism. Obviously, some
Mm-hmm.
homes are doing it soon, but those are not the normal, right? So to a
Right.
degree, a lot of African Americans growing up in that situation, subconsciously, we are seeking white acceptance. You know what I'm saying? Subconsciously, right?
True.
So
Mm-hmm.
in seeking white acceptance and based on some of the propaganda that Charisma talked about, whatever. Think about how things were propagandized back then. So the only women that could be stars was light-skinned black women back then.
Mm-hmm. For a
Whatever.
long
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
It's
for a long
still
time.
better with that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was still, yeah. But I'm just saying that's
Mm-hmm.
all would be on TV that was considered beautiful. Whoopi got on TV early, but nobody ever considered her beautiful. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. I
I'm
love
just
me some Whoopi though.
yeah, I
Me
feel
too.
you. I love it too,
I
but I'm
love
just saying
Whoopi.
he wasn't never considered. I'm just saying,
Yeah, she
you know,
wasn't considered the beauty
yeah.
standard,
The
you
dark
know.
ones that did,
Mm.
even the Sissy Tyson. Not by the time I was young. I guess when she was younger, she was beautiful. I'm just saying, like, I'm just being
Yeah,
about how
it
we saw
evolved. Just
as a
even with the
kid.
men, because it
Yeah,
took time for the men. Wesley Snipes
right.
was the first to bring the dark skinned brothers out. So yeah.
Exactly. But I was
Mm-hmm.
telling this process based on what she talked about your why. So,
Mm-hmm.
to a degree, being in that type of town, and I'll say this: the Ku Klux Klan marched till I was in the 5th grade every year in my little
Mm-hmm.
small town, right? Then after 5th grade, they stopped letting them march, or they didn't, or whatever the case may be. But I say all that to give you a little more context. So the guys that were in high school when I was just entering middle school, at that time, if they got with a white girl that had a baby, those families would send that white girl away. We wouldn't see her again. Whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was their experience. I even recall a couple of brothers, the KKK burned a cross, and I was I'm probably 4th
I've
grade.
seen that before too.
Right. But
But
whatever.
I'm from the country. I was born in the
So
country.
yeah,
I've
so you
seen it before.
understand. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm just talking about because they were dating or whatever. It kept getting a little okay as we came along, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was the first black president in my middle school, and I was the only black kid I was in the smart class, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I used to get the little pretty white girls and introduce them to my partners that want to get with them or whatever. And so I remember getting get called into as an 8th grader. They were trying to figure out, why are you so close to these girls, and why when y'all go places they only want to be with you or be around you or whatever. And they first warned me that when I got to high school, it probably wouldn't be smart for me to keep those relationships. This is my 8th grade year. I went through this. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I tell you this to say, so at that point in my life, I still remember light skin was better. So damn near white was better. Like that's your subconscious thinking
Right. If it
as a
light
young
right
man.
damn near white.
Right.
Yeah.
And then white was a win. So it would be impressive if a brother got with a white girl. So that's why my friends would want to get with them little pretty smart white girls that was all in my class. So I literally would get their numbers and do all the introducing. I was in love with this little sister at the time, so I didn't sweat it. I was in love with this sister, but I will hook them up because they would look like they got props. This is how we looked at the black-white dynamic, for years. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting into Malcolm. This is my 8th grade year, so I'm into Malcolm. So by the time I get to high school, I don't want to deal with no white girls. I had that curiosity at that in the 8th, 9th grade, but I lose
Mm-hmm.
due to my coming into my consciousness. But I still never
Mm-hmm.
think to judge my friends, if you will. Like my mind doesn't
Right.
go there because these are the guys I was raised with, and I grew up just like them, thinking white girls was the thing if you could get one. As
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, we're coming off one generation ahead. They had to do the shit damn near in secret. I still have a friend 1 year ahead of me that we know had it. He literally, they almost sent his girl away because they dated for so they had to date in secret for 4 years.
Oh wow.
I introduced them in the 8th grade, and they had to date in secret, and they was doing everything to keep her from the part that I introduced her to. So but I'm telling you this is because
Mm.
my consciousness was white was better. As I became more conscious, I started, getting into African stuff, looking and being like, man, realizing how beautiful we were.
Right.
But here's how it is in the South, and you notice the Asia. So white is better was I don't know if it's like this for the kids now, but this is how it literally was for us. When I started realizing how beautiful he was, and I got really into my consciousness, I went off to school way out in Colorado. So when I would come home, I would be upset because I would see cats where I'm from, they would date any old raggedy white girl.
Mm-hmm.
She was white. She could be ugly as hell. But since she was white, that was better. That was the weakness of our consciousness.
Yeah,
Right.
so that goes back to the why
Right.
and
And I
why
want
the
to keep going.
person.
If I
Yeah.
can, let me keep going with this because I want to walk through my own process. So as I come into the consciousness, I'm like, so I started, so now because again, as you come into consciousness, I went through the militant stage when I was young, basically. So in my militant stage, I would at least start saying to my partners, well, if you're gonna get one, at least get a bad one. Like I'm just talking about
Right.
the process. Because here it is. I don't went from the process of being curious. I get over my
Uh-huh.
curiosity pretty quick. So now that ain't what I want to do. I don't judge my
Exactly.
friends, but as I get more militant, I'm like, well, damn, don't date no ugly one. Like I'm saying, this is the
Right.
process.
If you gonna do
Right, right.
it.
So here's
Like,
the process. So then in college, I go to a military school with only 6% black. So now you're gonna get a lot of that just because of the numbers. You're gonna get a lot of intermixing just because of the numbers. Like you know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
a
it
military
ain't
school,
yeah, the odds. Yeah. You
ain't that
breaking
many
up.
women. That's the reality. Okay, you hear me? I'm breaking
Hmm.
up.
Yeah, you
So
broke up.
okay,
But
so
I'm gonna read this
go
comment
ahead.
real
Okay,
quick. Charisma said he's already hitting on a lot of us date out because we have subconscious belief that we are ugly and less than. I also learned that as I cleaned up my own subconscious clutter,
right,
my attractions changed even when it came to dating my own race. I've
exactly.
talked to 2 white guys in my teen years. I've never fully dated outside of my race. And then she goes, and yes, it's still that way, sir. It's actually worse now because they use the excuse that they are fighting racism.
So I want
Oh
to keep walking
wow.
through this
Oh, that's
because
deep what she just said
yeah,
too.
and that's so
Oh
because that's what I'm talking about. But I want to walk through.
yeah,
So I,
we listen. I just want to get to the
no, that was
comment.
no, yeah, yeah. We on
Yeah.
the same page. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just talking about watch how my own consciousness walks through this. So I
Yeah.
go from because my friends did it, I would hook them up with the white girls because even though I like sisters, I wasn't judging them. Then I get a little more consciousness, and I'm just kind of like, well, damn, why are you dating these ugly ones, or why are you dating these, big girls? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like this is literally what I would say straight up to them, right?
Yeah.
Because now I'm getting a little more judgmental about it. So then I go to the school where it ain't enough sisters there, so I can't even knock it because it ain't a lot of sisters there. Now, some of us, that's kind of I'm still locked in. So it's my first time being around a mixed group, being in South
Mm-hmm.
Carolina. A lot of Hispanics, there's a lot of mix out there in Colorado. It was my first time. But as I
Mm-hmm.
got more consciousness, I just only wanted sisters. Like that's kind of where I stayed. So here's how it transitioned. I stopped saying why you got to, whatever. I ain't even judging that you mix whatever. So then we started having a dialogue because I was part of the little black committee out there, whatever. I always been conscious, right? But for those who wasn't, then you would get into these dialogues and you would start hearing how some brothers really, really hated on sisters. We see that now on social media, like
Child.
talk down on sisters or whatever. So what I would say while going to that school where it was mostly white, only a few blacks or whatever. So what I started saying by the time I was a senior was, I ain't tripping on you dating outside the race. I am tripping if that's all you would date. I'm talking about this is how my consciousness goes. My consciousness
Mm-hmm.
moves too because some people were sincerely finding love or sincerely or whatever, or some brothers were just they dated all. That's just where they came from California, so they didn't even see it that way. They just date whoever.
Yeah.
You
So
feel me?
now if it's somebody that's black that's always dating outside the race, it brings the question like, do you have some innate hate or whatever? It brings that the question because it's
Right,
like now is you discriminating against your own, and you could kind of have a little more leniency if a person saying, "Well, I just like all women,"
right,
versus,
right.
"Oh, I just like these
Exactly.
specific women for a certain reason."
Right. Now let me
Yeah.
walk you through my consciousness though. So I go to that point where the only brothers I get disdain for is the cat that will not date a sister. I got disdain for them and I'm judging them. So,
Mm-hmm.
so think about my process. It was cool. I only date sisters, got no issue. Now I got issues with these people, right? So then this is me growing older and getting mature. So as I mature, and now that the gender war is well on this way, and I've been doing mental dialogue now for a decade, I was in a group a couple. I'm still in the group to a degree. I don't get to it as much. But one night we was having this dialogue online on Zoom, and the sisters was upset about something that Lil Wayne had done and a couple of the stars, because there's always been this stigma that the black superstars, will get white women or whatever. That's how that stigma's been around forever, right? So we were in that dialogue, Deasia, and in that dialogue, these sisters are just so upset and distraught that I forgot what Lil Wayne had said at the time or whatever, but they was distraught at anybody that, what I'm saying, was just show so much hatred towards the black women.
I remember what it was because it was something where his daughter had to come out in his defense, and it was the whole thing because it was like the darkest skin, and we were like, "Your child is dark skin." It was something he was
Okay,
saying.
but either way,
I remember I know what you're talking
yeah.
about. I
So
can't
yeah, so
recall
that
it
moment,
though.
so this is so my consciousness now is to a degree where I realize whatever I'm looking for, I can find. I can surround myself around blacks and black men and black women who absolutely adore each other. And so what I see online is nowhere near my reality. And,
Right.
and I had to learn that from people who say there's plenty of black men and black women who love each other. And the numbers actually support that. So even though I said earlier, interracial marriage is growing, at the end of the day, when 76% of black men, when they marry a woman, it's going to be a black woman. So that's still
Right.
three out of every four. I'm just saying, for example. But back to the full circle. So I'm in this dialogue now, having been moved to this other level of consciousness, knowing there's plenty of black men and black women who love each other. So I said to those sisters, because it was all of them was kind of jumping on. They were so upset about the Lil Wayne thing. And this group is a group of black men and women looking to get to each other, right? Mm-hmm. So I say to them that night, I pretty much checked them. So I went from checking the fellas to this, what I say right to this. I say to them, I say, sisters, I say, I absolutely feel your pain. I said, but you're in a room of black men who don't feel like this. You're making complaints to us, although all of us want women like you.
We want you. So right, it's like right. A lot of people have to find a space. A lot of people have to be able to, this is what I say, catch up with your kind. Instead of like just doing a whole lot of bashing and all of that, catch up with your kind and deal with Absolutely. How I say, fuck with those who fuck with you, basically.
And let me go take it one step further. What I ended up saying to him that night, and they finally was like an aha moment. And I said, so we can listen to you, but there's no one in this room. So you can tell us and ask us, why are these men this way? But there's nobody in this room that is this way.
And they can't even explain it to you really because it's not how they
No, I can explain it though, but here was the second part, and this is what shut it down, and they finally got it. And I told them about my history of just being upset at brothers who wouldn't date white women. I says, here's where I'm at now. And this is how I says, we shouldn't spend one iota worrying about what Lil Wayne did or anybody else that does that publicly. And I said, here's why. I says, because the way I love y'all now, I don't want him close to none of you. I don't want him
anyway. Right.
I don't want him nowhere near, because whatever his
you already know he got that innate hate for.
If it's self-hatred, because it's self-hatred, in order for you to hate a woman who looks like you in the mirror, there's a level of self-hatred. Now, again, we all have to most of us have to go through a process to loving ourselves. So for me, it ain't even about bashing Lil Wayne for it. I don't give a damn why his conscience is, but I love sisters enough that I don't want him around y'all. And so
because it ain't gonna do nothing but mess us up.
Right. So then I say that to these sisters, and I says, so as far as I'm concerned, we should never have these conversations inside of a group where we clearly have people that are seeking Black love.
Right.
So
Exactly.
you see the full circle of my own
Exactly.
journey?
I appreciate you for you took us through the evolution of Black Socrates.
Right.
John Taylor said, thank you for being here and thank you for sharing also. And y'all, if y'all on here, make sure y'all share the video. He said, yeah, people use a lot of excuses to date outside their race. I hate when they put down their own to justify dating outside the race. And then Charisma says, and that's what I'm talking about, Mr. Matoya. He went on shut it down. He don't want them around us. They gone on the way. And you know what? I'm not interested. I'm gonna tell you something, and this probably be deviating from the topic.
All good.
I'm not interested in educating people who feel a certain type of way.
Right.
Like if a Black man don't like Black women, or they're just like, if it's a man that don't like big girls and I'm a big girl, I'm not gonna try to like throw myself on you, educate you. I just deal with men who like big Black women. Simple as that.
And
like,
if we keep it that
that's
simple,
it.
but it is based on what you just said. Now let's go full circle on today's topic. What you just said is why we don't even need to be worried about who somebody dating and if they pro-Black. Like I said, the best argument is if you truly gonna leave a legacy. I won't even disagree with that argument. But we can't play, in my opinion, as I said earlier, we can't play around with it.
We can't just be using it just to be saying.
Like because it is. Because I want, like, my goal, I still want to be married. I hope I get married. So my goal is to find a legacy-minded sister.
You keep on talking like that, it's gonna be somebody that gonna listen to this and they gonna be like, Deja, who was that? What you say his name was? Socrates or something like that.
What I'm saying is, so because this matters to me, if to a degree, if she's not legacy-minded, it don't work for me. Because legacy-minded for me is not my kids, but my kids' kids. Now, my kids for me, here it is. Based on, let me be, like, I'll always be honest about my, go ahead. I can't hear you, Deja. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm listening. I got something going on in the background. So okay. I just muted my mic.
Okay, I thought you were talking to me. So what I'm saying is, I'll be honest about my situation. So what I'm saying now, let me be honest, I've only come to understand it to this degree within the last 4 to 5 years of my life. Because before being around a group who is legacy-minded, who explain legacy the way that I'm explaining it now, before that time, I just wanted to find me a Black woman I love and, do the best I can. I'm just saying, I wasn't thinking.
You weren't thinking too more into it. And I think that's what goes back to what Charisma was saying. Sometimes we got to look at the why of why we even picking our own, because a lot of us will just pick a spouse just to say we have somebody and just to live the quote unquote American dream and ain't even put in the thought of what type of person is it, how they even see things about like legacy or different concepts that we deal with, what type of parent they may be if we were to, have a child with them, all these different things we don't even think about when we're going into picking our partner. And then come down the line, we're dealing with divorces because we didn't do the vetting process right, because we're walking into these different arrangements with people with just love on our mind,
right,
and not thinking about taking care of the business. And it's way more to being in a relationship,
a marriage,
especially a marriage,
marriage in particular,
especially a marriage.
So that's why
love. That's a big ticket business.
So that's why we can't play around with the legacy part.
Yeah.
So like I said, so the legacy. So because outside of that, here it is though. So really, what ends up happening is we really end up being in less of a place to judge anybody outside of not checking off a few boxes that most of us who are judging have not checked off. Here's my reality. Here's the reality for me. Having learned this information late in the game, I'm not necessarily where I want to be. So it becomes very necessary that she's legacy minded with the way that I've done it, because here's what legacy could mean for me. If I'm behind the curve a little bit, legacy could mean get the life insurance, get the estate planning. Maybe it ain't as much as I would ideally want to leave at this point, but it's also culturally raising my children to be marriage minded, because in them marrying and me leaving something and teaching them to do it again, it could be 2 generations that I actually secure my legacy.
Yeah, and
Does
then
that
you
make
know
sense?
what? And
But you
that's
know,
another
look how
topic.
far thought that has to be. That thought has to be
It
well
gotta
thought
be
out.
up there. And then you know what? I'm gonna tell you the truth. And this another topic, and we might, we'll figure this out because I kind of want to talk on this topic too.
Okay.
I want to the importance of marriage. See, I've done papers on marriage, like from all the way from high school up into college, and my thought process on marriage, as far as the dynamics of the relationship, has a lot of people think about marriage and they're only thinking about the dynamic of the relationship, like, the monogamy, or whether it's going to be poly or things like that or whatever. And they're not looking at the legacy. They're not looking at what it all entails. And I don't care what it is. Like, a lot of people be like, people sound crazy as hell to me when they be like, I don't never want to get married. But y'all have kids. It's
Crazy
like
as hell.
that is so backwards, where that lets me know that they don't understand what marriage is. Marriage, actually going down there and getting that paper, is actually taking care of the business. Yeah, I love you, but this is
Absolutely.
taking care of the business, because you really can't build legacy
Right.
without it.
Right. Yeah.
You can't.
There is if you're
You
gonna
can't do it
if you're gonna
without it.
exactly if you're gonna allow this constructive race to even control us, and when we talk about it, and then we're the least to get married, there's no group historically around the world that's defeated another group without the majority of that culture being married and within family.
Exactly.
Because you
And
cannot
it's like you
leave
can't.
legacy. And once the world moved to agriculture and land became something that humans could so-called own. Now that's what we've been in that age of humans
Hmm.
for however 10,000 years at this point now. And so the idea of legacy, owning land to have something to even protect and fight over, then you cannot do that outside of marriage. So people have lost their damn mind to
Yeah.
that. So that's what so the pro-black has to be get married and leave a real legacy. So outside of you doing those things, don't be judging somebody because they married a white woman or a white man. That's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
and you know what? I wanna even leave legacy alone right now.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I don't want to use too many talking points on this
For the
conversation, and
next show.
then it could be a whole nother show.
Yeah, that's real.
Charisma said, I have gotten to that point. I'm woman enough to realize that it stings a little when I see a black man say that he only wants white women, but I've also grown to let him have his desires. I have no desire to try and guilt trip, talk him into anything different
Maturity,
in his
Queen.
life. I just
Maturity.
surround myself like-minded people, and that's exactly what I do. Like, I'm gonna tell you something. I get so mad at people, and because I have a different demographic. Like, not only am I black, but I'm a big girl. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still in a different
You gotta,
demographic as well, right?
yeah, exactly.
I don't like when big women even post anything, be like, I'm big and fine, or this. I do it if I'm trying to be funny. I don't even point that out. I'm not about to, like, if you don't like big women, that's absolutely okay. If you don't like black women, that's absolutely okay. Because at the end of the day, there's so many of them that, why would I be trying to convince this one man to like me that I probably don't even want? I probably don't even want him, but I just want him to have some admiration for me.
But let's
I
take it one
don't.
step further. Let's take it one step further. Let's go. Let's say you could even want him. But what? So at the end of the day,
I don't want nobody that don't want
yeah,
me.
but I was
Even
going to
if
say
I
that in the
want
event
him
that
and
you
I
did
learned that
want
he
him,
don't
and
want
you
me,
even if you convinced him, how good could the relationship
I
be?
wouldn't even. It's gonna be
I
so
know you would never
unhealthy.
do it, but that's what I'm pointing it out
Yeah,
for people.
exactly.
Even if you want him, you got to understand that's a mirror check. It's a mirror check. And I've had to go through those mirror checks myself. At the end of the day, regardless of any reason, at the end of the day, you have to want somebody who wants you. That's not
Exactly.
easy. It's not easy. When it comes to this relationship thing, it is, we are humanly notorious for wanting what we can't have or shouldn't have, or what we ourselves have not lived up to. That's usually what it is.
But
And
you
I'm
know what?
guilty of
I
it as well.
realized a long time ago that I have way too much to give in order for me to even entertain somebody who is not fully invested and want me the same way
No,
that I
that's how you're
want them.
supposed to feel.
Because I know I give too
Yeah,
much of myself, and it's not that
absolutely.
I don't have my boundaries. It's like that I love a certain type of way, and I understand the love a certain type of way, and it's just how I was raised. So it's kind of like,
I respect that.
if I'm not with the right person, then I will, like, inadvertently get misused. I wouldn't even be trying. You know what I'm saying?
That's all of it.
It's just gonna happen like that. So it's like I wouldn't even put myself in a position. I've been in a position where it was somebody that kind of like wasn't showing the same level of interest or whatever. So I'm like, okay, that's fine, because I want somebody to be just as into me as I am into them. And it doesn't matter whether I'm looking at it from just being a black girl lens, a
Right.
big girl lens, or it could be my complexion. Even though I do understand that, even with being a light skinned woman, from the things that we have dealt with in the past, that they try to say like, oh, okay, we're pretty much like what is considered like the standard of beauty just off of being light skinned, which is not true, but I understand that too. But then there are men that don't like light skinned women.
Absolutely.
If you don't, that's absolutely okay. Like what I'm saying in a
Yeah, of course.
nutshell, regardless of whether or not I'm someone's preference, it doesn't matter to me unless if it's somebody that I want and they want me too. Otherwise, their preference, it does not matter to me. Even if I
Yeah.
want them and they don't want me at that time, I'm just gonna have to deal with myself and try to get over the fact that I'm into this person. I'm not gonna try to convince you otherwise, because if I had to fight and convince you to like me in a way, I
Right.
don't
What
want
is that gonna,
you. I don't want you.
right. Here's
And then
the other.
half the time it be one person that have an issue. They're just like, some of these entertainers, they will, and just people in general, a lot of times we gravitate towards the negative. It's like you'll have all these people that love you, but you want to post up and talk about a hater, where you could be using that energy to pour into the people who love and support you.
Exactly.
Because it's so many people that love and support me, to the point where why would I even
Uh,
waste my time being like, oh, my family didn't support me like I thought they was gonna support me? Well, it's about two or three of them that I only talk to anyway. Where I got this people,
absolutely.
this X amount of people over here that do
Yeah, I
support me.
don't.
So
I
why
don't
should
see.
I care? It's the
I don't
same
see
type.
it.
It's
I
in the
don't see it.
same vein though.
Yeah, I don't see
And
those.
she said, what Charisma say? She said, yes, it's the spirit of competition, or the spirit of wanting to conquer someone else. Once you fight past your ego, that goes away quickly as well. Because a lot of us don't want to accept the fact that people don't want us. A lot of us don't want to accept the fact that we're not everybody's type. They're not
So
gonna want us.
yeah,
But when
that's a
it
whole
comes
nother
to
subject.
dealing with your race,
Right.
but when it comes down to dealing with your race, I feel like if it's a case where, I'm gonna tell y'all something. I have a relative. I'm gonna put it this way. I have a relative that only date outside the race or whatever.
Right.
This relative only date outside the race, but has been the most supportive of me on every journey that I have gone on, as far as just accepting myself for who I am. Where else everybody else frowns upon this person for dating outside their race, but this is the only person that actually support me as a black woman. And the thing is what was told to me in so many words was, I love black women. I just don't want to fuck them. That's basically what was told. In a nutshell, that's what
So,
was told to
so
me.
here it is.
And
Here
the
it is.
thing
Go
is,
ahead.
it's
Go
like,
ahead.
what's the problem? It's like, if somebody put it like that, it's like, now it made me think, like, are you even just with these women just because you just want to lay up with them? Are you objectifying them and fetishizing behind these women or
So,
whatever? And it's kind of like it's like, I got so much respect. It's like the love and the respect that he have for the black woman. It turns into like, he know he not gonna do right, so he go over there because he don't want he just want to get his rocks off, basically.
but here's the thing. What we all should learn, like, so, like when we were talking about earlier, like deal with who deals with you or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Finding your like-minded, so you can find your tribe. Like we've made the mistake, and I'm not. It's not something that just black people do or whatever. But again, due to this construct of how we connect, unfortunately, we've built culture via struggle. That's not a healthy way to build
Oh,
struggle,
child.
build culture. But we were, let's be honest, we were forced to do it this way, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's our reality. But now that it's our reality, and now that we're able to, read a Dr. Joy DeGraw getting into post-traumatic slave syndrome and get into the psychology, we go about mental dialogue. So we're always thinking of things from a psychological standpoint. And so here's the psychology of it all. So the psychology of it all, and this is why you have quote unquote cancel culture, and you're judging somebody whether they're pro-black or not based on who they whatever. We're actually trying to control others because we have this concept of, well, you come from the same struggle I do, so we culturally should be the same. It's
Yeah, you should
complete
understand it.
it's complete BS. Complete BS meaning allow everybody to do what the fuck they want to do.
Yeah, and a lot of and then you know what, a lot of black people, they look at other black people, and even the concept of being real or not real is kind of like one of those things. Like if you black, they automatically assume if you ain't from the struggle, like I'm from the struggle, then you're not real. And if you're not
This
living out your life in
all
the
this
way that
stuff
I
is
am,
a
you're not
bunch of
real.
pettiness that's just devolved into our trauma. What I call, we up here get into the Black Enough Olympics. It's a complete waste of
Mm,
time because had we not been through this transatlantic trip, if you will, right?
exactly.
Had we not been through it, then here's what we think other groups see themselves collectively in a way that they actually don't see themselves. So the way we fight with these petty things, like you said, did you come from the streets or did you not? You ain't real. Like all these little things that and I've done them when I was younger as well. But all of these things, let's analyze it real quick before we go. So where it's coming from is this trauma of trying to collectively identify because we don't have an identity. So what happens
Hmm.
is when groups haven't had this missing of their identity, which really because of how our transatlantic slave trip happened, we're really kind of unique in the way that ours happened compared to other types of enslavements or historically. But again, it's not to say we were the worst victims. I'm just talking about being removed is why we have this such as identity chase. Because what happens for all cultures is at the end of the day, no culture is monolithic. All groups are allowed to be what they want to be. So like for example, the reason we have so much trouble with media over the years is when we look at how we've been portrayed, whether it be in movies, how we're portrayed in whatever music, entertainment, or whatever.
Hmm.
So I've seen you talk about this before. So like for example, I can't stand the housewife show or whatever, to a degree or whatever.
Yeah, we've got into that
But
conversation.
right, but here it is. They got a White Housewife show where they
Yeah,
just
they act
crazy,
the fool.
but we don't know
They
that.
act
Whatever.
worse.
Right, but
They
here's the
act
thing.
worse.
Let me go. Here's the thing. The
You don't
difference
know that
is,
because you ain't watching it.
so one, you ain't watching it, but here's where I'm really going. So they got it, even though that ain't. We don't see it. It don't come up on our timeline. But the reality is, on TV, white people never think, "Oh, look how they're making us look. They're embarrassing us," because on TV they get to see their full selves. So they'll see somebody that's an astronaut all the way down to the ratchetness of these white housewives. The reason we get caught up in, oh, he making us look bad is because the media is only showing us our bad selves. We don't have our esteem collectively where we need it to be. So that's why we get into telling you, oh, Deasia, you did that. You ain't black. We're doing this. So so our trauma makes us continue to try to collectively relate through a struggle. And here's the reality. This is how bullshit race is. Here's how bullshit race is. So if anywhere in the world, if I wanted to make a generalization about what this person thinks or believes, their religion and how they think, if I know the region, the geography of where they're from, I have way more chances of guessing right about what they culturally think, believe, and than I ever could just because someone's black. We could do that in the United States right now. In the United States right now, me going to Colorado at this military school where everybody's from everywhere, I could tell more about a person based on their region than I ever could based on their race. That's how much of a bullshit construct race is. It's a minimal thing that we're trying to judge who's pro-black or not. At the end of the day, when the brother Yamo asks what's pro-black is a willingness to help. Because there's nothing we have to be
being
honest.
of servitude.
Right.
Being
Yeah.
of servitude.
Because what I'm saying is there's no running from the factual systemic stuff that happened in the past and some that is still happening. So therefore, me and you as a black person, and I'll take any white person, any Asian who, if there's an issue with, because I was a loan officer, right? So as a loan officer, so basically the housing industry did a whole bunch of discriminatory stuff, really all the way up until the housing crash.
And they still doing it.
But it was way worse up.
I know.
Regulations
Yeah.
stopped it. But again, I only learned this because I was a loan officer for a while, right? But I say all this to say that the people that got that legislation changed wasn't just the 12% of black people in the country.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when we see, okay, now we want to regulate this industry who's been staring, that's still been redlining, that's still been doing these things, we're going to need some damn allies, whether we realize it or not.
Whether we want to, yeah.
Because we never put in perspective what 13% look
because
like.
we're not ingrained. We're not ingrained. We're not in deep enough in these different systems in order for us to not for us to be able to do certain things without having allies. We have to have some allies
when it comes to systemic stuff. So with the
Yeah.
systemic stuff, I don't care who pro-black. If we get rid of some shit that's messing with the group, like the group of us doesn't mean you as the individual, you can break out of any systemic shit. And I applaud and respect the brothers who are not caught up in this trauma bonding.
But collectively,
right. So if I go off and do my own thing, but I see a collective decision, I ain't pro-black if I don't vote for that collective decision.
Exactly.
And I know that the 13% of us can't get that shit unless you've heard me make this argument before on mental dialogue. I tell y'all, just come to it. Like come where we already at, then the shit become easy.
Exactly. And another thing that I wanted to point to is what we said. The thing is that we're not a monolithic people. So the best thing for people to do is find their tribe. And that's the best thing. Find your tribe, because we're not a monolith. So it's best for you to find your tribe. And so, child, I want to go ahead and wrap this up. So I really do. I think again, Matoya, I appreciate you for being here. I really enjoyed this conversation, and child, this conversation done opened up. So I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this one day. I want to talk about this. It done sparked so many different ideas, and that's what it's all about.
So I just tell them, just Raj, know I said at the beginning, so let me say at the end in case. Every Saturday morning, the Mental Dialogue Talk Show. Find my Facebook page. We're always playing there. If you have any podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, just look up Mental Dialogue, and we're always doing conversations just like this. Because again, this is what we specialize in: hard conversations on race, sex, and culture, and we do a lot of Black business stuff as well. So definitely check us out. But thank you, Deja, for having me on. I loved it. It was dope. Like you and me, we could do this all night.
We'll be up all night. You know how we do.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll be in the talk about everything.
I don't even know if we still talking about the topic by this point.
Child, we ain't even talking about the topic no more. We just gonna went somewhere else, but that's a vibe though.
And one last thing, let's close it out to bring it back to the topic, because you said this. Yeah. When we're talking about the idea of wanting who wants you. The one thing I thought, and this is actually brings it full circle. Well, now, to be honest, because you understand how important marriage is to legacy, you can't even just simply say want who wants you. Because if we're gonna be serious about today's topic, you need to find someone who y'all agree on what legacy is, because even that can be almost sometimes above who wants you. Like find someone, because that person that can commit to that legacy makes it all worth it. And at the end of the day, humans are communal. None of us want to die alone. So we can wait all our lives wanting for who want us, when we really should just get together, leave a legacy, and go do who's willing to commit with you. That's what people historically done. And they didn't break up because they were committed to the actual.
And you know what? That's a topic that's something that I want to talk about when I talk about the importance of marriage. Because if I dropped some little breadcrumbs. Yeah, you did. I dropped some breadcrumbs on a couple of posts, because I had made a post and I said something about, was it worth being a single mother because you left your husband because he cheated? And a lot of people was like, what is she talking? They went at me. But when you understand legacy,
we don't
and you understand marriage, and you understand certain things, that's something that I have to break down. I have to bring the people in. I'm gonna get that arranged. Anyway, y'all, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. Make sure that you have like and follow the page, so that way you don't miss any upcoming shows. Make sure that you have subscribed to the YouTube channel. I ain't been on this computer so long. Let me find my little thing I had created. Y'all check this out. You got to subscribe to the YouTube channel.
I did. I did.
You
Oh,
gotta hit
dope.
the little subscribe
Oh, look
button.
at you.
Ah,
Yeah, you moving up. I ain't gonna never learn how to do that when I do my little video show.
and don't call me and ask me how to do it,
I
because
ain't gonna
child,
never
you be
call you.
stressing me
I
out. You
got a
know how
video
you
show
be.
coming pretty
Ooh,
soon.
Deja, how you do this? Okay, I'm like,
You
I
know
ain't
me,
gonna
I
do
don't know
it.
how to do shit.
I'll make you one though. And then also, just make sure that you're liking, following the page. Also, make sure you have subscribed to the YouTube channel. And I sell shirts now because a dry bitch could never. Make sure that you hit me up so you could get one of these shirts. You can't whoop me, or a dry bitch could never. These were some shirts that I had got like on a promo thing, so they're not gray. They are black with white letters. They're $25 a piece. If you would like to get one, then definitely hit me up. And the shipping is included in that price as well. So again, make sure that you have subscribed to the YouTube channel, like and share the page, and you're following the page. And I really appreciate y'all for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you so much, Montoya.
Later, Queen.
Y'all have a good one. Thank y'all for tuning in. We finna tune out. Bye bye.
All I ask is that you think.